Hi, welcome to Blackbird 1619. I am Megan. We've got Elizabeth and Ashley and Micah here with us. Today's topic is going to be the N word. So I'm just going to put that out there as a trigger warning for some of you guys because we will be saying the word or at least referencing the word. So if that's a trigger for you, maybe not the episode for you, but we're talking about the history of the word today. Um, so, Micah, housekeeping stuff.
So if you would like to interact with us and talk to Megan, there's a link to the Facebook group below in the description. And then we also have a couple of links to like the articles that we read and are referencing, and there's a couple of videos as well. So check that out in the description box thing.
We look forward to hearing from you guys. So let's jump into this. So we're going to like the goal of this discussion is to talk about like sort of how the word transformed over time from the word nigger to the word nigga, which is used today. So that's sort of where we're going to start. The origin of the word is Latin. It is believed that in the beginning, it was sort of like a bastardization of the Latin word and used as a descriptor to like these people are black. So that's where the word originates, like the origins of the word. But we're going to get into sort of how it goes from being a descriptor to being a derogatory term to reclaiming it and then its transformation to from ER to A. So anybody want to go find something interesting? Starting point, jumping point? Ashley, Micah, Elizabeth? Anybody? Quiet.
Yeah. I'll let you start, Megan.
Okay, so what I have found is that and like one of the things that I found was interesting in my reading was that it like initially it was just a descriptor. But in one of my readings, they talked about slaves using the word nigger like towards each other, and I thought that was really interesting because it's like such an awful word, but like that it was a word just like we like some people use nigga today to reference other black people, like slaves used the er form of the word to refer to each other. And I thought that was interesting, and then I kind of like perused and thought about it in my head, and I came to this conclusion, and maybe it's wrong, but the conclusion that I drew from it was like you've got Africans from all over, like the coast of Africa, who've been transported to America, and they're hearing this word, and even though they're looking at other people who are black, they know that they're like I know you don't come from my tribe, but do they call you this also? Are we on the same ground? Right? And so that's sort of the way that I picture the word being used, not as in like a like a
derogatory.
right, not it like I don't think they were using it derogatory towards each other, but it's like all of these, yeah, as like a descriptor. Like all of these people call us this. Are you also this? um and so I found that pretty interesting that there's record of slaves referring to each other as niggers. And I found that really interesting. But like when I kind of like let it seep into my brain, that's the conclusion that I came to is that like, are you this? I am this. Are you this? um, And then I did hear something interesting that like during the Revolutionary War, the British Redcoats used it against American soldiers, as in like in a derogatory way,
Oh.
like you are so weak, you have to use niggers to help you win this war and to fight. And I thought that was really interesting because I'd never seen that or heard that before, like of like British soldiers using it against Americans. And I wonder, is that sort of, in my reading at least, like predate um, whites using it in a derogatory way towards black people. And so I wonder if that is kind of the start of it, is like during the American Revolutionary War, British people are telling Americans that they're this thing, this other, even from them, even though they're both white, right? That they're this other, and they're using the term derogatorily, and then like Americans turn around and use that word derogatory towards slaves, and that maybe is the transition from it becoming like a descriptor to becoming
Derogatory.
derogatory. Did anybody else see anything like that?
I saw like kind of that during the like late 18th century and like 19th, early 19th century, that like laborers, I guess it was kind of used almost as a labor category, is what they describe it as, by actual African Americans, that they adopted kind of as their social identity. I mean, when you don't have anything, you adopt
Right.
that or kind of what's in your area. So I totally get that. And
Mhm.
then from there, people who were racist kind of adopted the word as that derogatory epithet. So
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's like it was taken and then like they took it and kind of tried to reclaim it once before and taken away, and then really wasn't reclaimed until I mean, because I feel like people were using it conversationally probably 50s, 60s, 40s, 50s, 60s among Black people communities, and then you started hearing it more commercially probably in the 80s.
So like I was looking and I've watched some of those films. So like I was like black exploitations. They're talking about like the 60s and 70s, and they used the hard ER word in those movies towards each other. And so for me, I was like, oh, it's like another like an attempt to like reclaim the word, and but I feel like when I see it in those movies, and like the other day I watched uh, Judah and the Black Messiah, and that's around the same time period. That they it's not always a nice word, and so I feel like that's like interesting, is that it like even like in the black community there's different ways to use it. So you see, like you're stupid, like it being a substitute for the word stupid or ignorant. Um, um, and this, I think, especially like in black exploitation movies, like it doesn't come across to me at least as like the word brother, but more as like you're a dumb nigger. Is sort of the way it comes off in the movies. At least the ones that I've seen. I have not watched a lot of black exploitation movies because I just cannot. But I think it's really interesting, and maybe that's like where the switch then comes from again. So like you go from like slavery and then into like the like the early 19th century, like Ashley was saying. And in one of the things that I was reading or saw, I think it's one of the YouTubes. I don't know if it's posted, but there's a YouTube where they talk about it, and the guy says that like the word nigger was on everything, like on like products, like board games, and it was just everywhere. And like it's the title of songs, the title of records, in like the 20s to like the 50s. It's just all over the place.
Oh.
The names of towns. Texas had several.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Several.
Which I like that was really shocking to me. I didn't realize that it was so widespread. Like that it was just everywhere. Because in my head, I guess I think it's like only like racists use that word. But it's really it really like I learned a lot like looking at that because I didn't realize that it was everywhere. And so I think that's where you get this like I didn't know it was bad. Like it was on my soup. How like how can it possibly be a bad word? It was on my soup. Um so I thought that was really interesting. I don't know if any of you guys came across that at all in your research.
I don't know. Like as far as theories go, like I don't know. But yeah, like my assumption has always been that it's like it became derogatory just inherently as like a descriptor of like this is not like, you know, we're not talking about people. So like it's like a descriptor in a different way. Like it's and so yeah, it I think even then, like even if it was in wide use, I think it's still like using the same kind of connotation. It's still using like it's at least when white people were using it back then, even though it's like common. And even though, yeah, it's like I have encountered very, very old people who are like, no, that's just like they just think it's another word. Like they're not intending it offensively. But yeah, it's othering. Like that's like I said, it's inherently insulting. Like so.
Well, Ashley, you just said that you found that there were towns named.
So another note too is that there was actually an Australian company in Australia who, so it just shows you how kind of far the word goes, who made various sorts of licorice, and it went under the name of Nigger Boy in Australia. So, but they also have a sordid history with their native people and colonizers. So it makes sense that it's already there because they are coming from having seen darker skinned people who they refer to as niggers. And then you go to another place where, hey, they're here too. They will associate with this. And then our people also associate with it because they're the consumer. So in a way, it kind of makes sense. I mean, it's shitty, but it makes sense. But so let's see. So the places in West Texas, there was a dead nigger creek. Yep. And it was there was also a dead Negro draw. That was the rename. Both names they are thinking were probably to commemorate the Buffalo Soldier tragedy of 1877. And then there's also, because there are two that I read about in Texas. Let me see. Niggerhead Mountain in Burnett, Texas. It was named
Burnett.
It was named because the forest basically said atop it resembled a black man's hair.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So I mean it
That
I
kind
mean,
of
like,
reminds. It's like those compliments that are actually insults, kind of things, or
yeah.
backhanded compliment, I guess.
Backhanded compliments. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I was looking for. I came across something like that too, where like there are still some towns that are like, or like places, but it's like the population is so small. In Texas, at least, like you have to have a certain percentage. Like, say we want to change the name of our town, and like nobody even really knows about it. Uh,
Not going to be any traction to change it.
yeah, but I don't know if I saved that or not. I don't see it at my.
Now that was renamed, but it says here it wasn't renamed until 1968 and
Wow.
renamed the Colored Mountain.
It's not really better.
Not really better. So
All right. So I guess that brings us to like the 50s, 60s. So we're talking like civil rights era. I'm black and I'm proud, and that's sort of like when like black kind of emerges in heavy use um, during the civil rights. And I think you also see then like a super resurgence of what is it, like the pushback, right? So you have civil rights and you have the pushback, right? And I think you see a huge resurgence in it specifically being derogatory and not meaning anything else. um, and then, like I said, like in the 60s and the 70s, you start to see this like sort of reclaiming of it and like use in black exploitation films and use by other, like use by blacks to refer to each other. And I'm still talking about ER. We're not to A yet, just for those of you keeping track. So you see that in like the 60s and the 70s. And then in the 80s is where you see Nigga pop out. Like that's sort of its emergence. And from my research, it seems predominantly that it came out of rap music, is that's where it kind of started and spread. Um, I don't know if anybody found anything other than that. Or is that sort of the general consensus that like that's where it started?
I saw so there was an article Micah was talking about from it's the Black History Always the Undefeated where he read some slave narratives, and I think like he quoted some of those that I saw were like it is I think it's as common to see it like just as a pronunciation thing, like especially in the South. But yeah, like there were some direct quotes from a couple of people using the A ending. So yeah, it's like I don't think it didn't exist, but
yeah, like I found
it
just
is,
the only thing I found was Paul Mooney. I don't know if y'all know who he is. He's a black comedian. Hilarious, so funny. But he basically coined "nigga please" in the 70s.
Really?
Yeah, and that was in the 70s. So he was up on stage doing comedy, "nigga please." Like that was that was kind of the start of that. So it was out there. People were using it.
Yeah.
Again, it wasn't probably popularized on a more mass scale until the 80s, and it wasn't everywhere in your face, playing literally on the radio.
Right.
Like you might have to go to a comedy club to hear it, like, or you're with, close personal friends, but like hearing, like for the public, anybody could just turn on the radio and tune to a station and
hear
it. Like that was probably, I would say, more likely in the 80s when it was in songs.
Yeah. So that like talks about what I read is like when you start seeing it in rap music, and like of course like rap music starts with like in the black community, it's black people are buying it, and then it starts to get more airtime, it gets popular, and then it reaches white suburbia, and that's probably like we're talking about it like being everywhere, right? It's like it hits white suburbia and then all of a sudden it's all over the place.
Well, because their children have access to the media. That's what the
Right.
issue. Yeah. It's not just you're playing records at home to yourself. Like we
Right.
can't control it if our kids are out listening to the radio and they'll listen to this.
Right. And so I think that then, like when, and we'll get into this next time when we talk about, is it appropriate to use, yes or not? I think that's when you start to, so when it starts being used like widely, you know, as pop culture, that's when you start having the issues of like, you can't say that. You're not black and you can't say that.
Mm-hmm.
So that is sort of all that I have found on the on the words regarding like its sort of evolution between like descriptor, derogatory term, and then like it's like sinking into like not being used anymore because like I said, like in the 20s and the 30s it was kind of everywhere. And then even though like this like even before the civil rights movement, like it sort of goes not underground, but it's not part of pop culture anymore. Like you don't see it on records and stuff like after like the 20s and 30s. Like it's sort of, which I think is really interesting because it's kind of like, so you know you're not supposed to say it. Right? If you took it off everything, right? You stop using it in song lyrics and you stop, you know, calling black licorice that. To me, it's like, you know, you're not supposed to say it.
Because
But then,
the only reason they changed it is because Lady Bird Johnson was first lady. He took offense and was like, this is not okay. And she really pushed and kind of initiated for it to be changed. Otherwise, it would probably, I mean, it eventually would have changed, but that was the driving force. She was the driving force, apparently, why it was changed.
the candy, you mean?
The
You're talking
what?
about what are you referencing?
The mountain in Burning.
Mountain. Okay, got it. Okay. I didn't know if you were talking about the candy from Australia or something.
Oh, no, not the candy. No, she had nothing to do with that. That was in Australia.
I was like, wait, how did that happen?
We're back in Texas.
Got it. Lady Bird Johnson here. Cool beans. So that is a very brief history. I'm sure, and like, hey, you guys out there, you found something, you know something, there's something that we missed, please tell us. Like, I am all about learning. We're all about learning here. If you found something, you got a link or a paper, like, feel free, post it below or come on the Facebook and be like, hey, you didn't talk about this. I'm here to learn too. So if you know something I don't know, tell me. I'm all about that life. So I think that's it for today, unless anybody has anything else, final comments or whatnot.
I'm looking forward to the next one, so we get to into sort of opinions and what we think and what like other people. I think it's gonna be interesting.
Yes. So our next topic, we will be talking about whether or not it's okay, the use of ER versus A, whether nigga is okay to use, and basically our opinions. And I'm sure we'll still have like facts and stuff too, but it'll be more our opinions and more of a discussion about the word, which is probably why this video is really short because we're trying to keep our opinions out of it and it's really hard. But thank you guys for watching and we will see you next time. As always, don't be a racist and wash your hands.